Salam. Almost a month ago, we saw the ending of the month of Ramadan. And I know most of us have already missed the experiences in Ramadan. However, in this video, we are going to talk about and reflect on our experiences in Ramadan. Imagine, after all the spiritual connection and the habits and mindset that we built in Ramadan, and the purpose that we found in Ramadan, have we just let it go? So, we will be talking about some experiences, how we can reflect that in other months. Actually, the topic for this video or series of videos to come was actually picked out of my journal, which is Ramadan Reflections in Other Month, a year-round journal for spiritual growth and personal development. We all want to develop ourselves personally. However, there's one thing we actually underestimate, that is our spiritual growth. I always say, if you don't get your spiritual growth right, it is difficult to have it right with your personal development. So, stick around to the end of the video as we answer certain questions from that journal, which I know will be impactful to myself and yourself. So the first of the question from the journal was, how did Ramadan transform you? How did it personally transform you? Obviously, I'm going to share mine, but I'll need you to also share yours in the comment section below. So, let's say in Ramadan, obviously, it is a month dedicated for our spiritual development. It comes with lots of acts of worship, which includes fasting, additional, optional prayers, supererogatory prayers, acts of kindness, all in that month of Ramadan in order to spiritually develop ourselves. But the main part of it is the fasting, right? So the fasting actually makes us stay away from the pleasures of food, sexual relations, etc. for 29 or 30 days. So what happens? We do that for what? So that we can gain consciousness, so that we can really control ourselves without them. Remember, Allah says this in the Quran, we prescribed fasting just as we prescribed fasting for the people before you, so that you would attain consciousness. So meaning, when we stay away from these things that we were asked to abstain, that is food, sexual relations, and others of desire, we get control of ourselves and we get to attain spiritual growth. I find it interesting when Allah said He prescribed fasting. The word fasting, as in the Quran, was kutiba. It could be written, or let's say obligated, or prescribed. But I feel more resonance with prescribing, because it's just like you go to the doctor and tell the doctor that you're sick. The doctor, after diagnosing whatever is wrong with you, would give you a prescription to go for some medications. It's the same thing with fasting. So Allah prescribed fasting for us, so that after all the other 11 months of kind of unconsciousness, we get to gain some consciousness with fasting in the month of Ramadan. How beautiful is that? In the same light, Allah also says in the Quran about Ramadan, He said, in the month of Ramadan, He revealed the Quran as a guide with clear guidance. And He said, whoever witnesses Ramadan should fast. Just see how beautiful all these things have been put in order, right? So I would say in Ramadan has been that month for self and soul discovery. And this Ramadan has been one of the purposeful month of Ramadan I've ever witnessed, to understand what self and soul discovery is. For me, the last Ramadan has been an opportunity for me to have that conscious mindset of approaching every act of worship with that consciousness, with having my soul aligned to whatever I was doing. Let's face it, we've all been in that moment where we were so negligent, although we fulfill those acts of worship, but we often forget ourselves. But I think in Ramadan, just because of the fasting, I think it makes the mind focus or concentrate on the soul. So I feel like I took the opportunity to really focus and concentrate my soul in whatever I was doing. And that was a beautiful thing I discovered in this Ramadan. Another thing was my approach to reciting the Quran. In the last Ramadan, I ensure that whenever I read the Quran, I started with intention. with the intention of finding guidance and insights from the Quran, particularly with my own life. And I would say it was so amazing, because imagine Allah said in the Quran that we revealed the Quran as a guide with clear guidance. So I felt like, no, there's a guidance for each and every one of us. So as I approached it that way, with that intention, I found insight to make life much more purposeful and achieve the longest ever, goal of having a better hereafter. These were some of the amazing insight I got from this Ramadan. What about you? Share your thoughts with me in the comment section below. So the second question is, what were the most impactful moments for you in Ramadan? For me, I'll say the impactful moments were the times when I read the Quran. As I said earlier, I approached reading the Quran, differently in the last Ramadan, because I would ensure that I was so focused, I was so aligned in order to understand whatever I was reading. So as I approached it that way, I got insights about life, about how to live life purposefully, right? In so doing, I got to understand that our soul should always be in surrendering or submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The thing is, our mind usually tends to use logic to think that we are independent of the creator of our soul, right? However, we forget that the soul is a constituent force that makes our brain and mind alive. So if you want to be more thoughtful in your life, you just have to surrender that soul to Allah. And that was a beautiful thing I discovered reading the Quran. And more to that was when I had to pray, that is salah, that is the daily prayer rites. As the word depicts, salah, sili, that is to connect. So it became a moment to be soul aligned and connect with its creator. And these were the most impactful moments I found in this Ramadan. That was so amazing. As with our soul, is a trust that was given to us by Allah. I discussed this in a previous video about the soul. This is a trust that was given to us by Allah. And there would be a day that it will be taken away from us, an unknown appointed time. And we would be accountable for whatever we expose it to. So the best things we can expose the soul to is by having this act of worship that gets us connected with its creator. So when the time arrives, then the soul attains what we call nafsul mutma'inna, that is the tranquil soul. And these were the insight I discovered in this Ramadan. So salah becomes an opportunity for us to submit and surrender with humility to the creator, having our soul aligned in that process. However, I think there's this moment that the experience was so, heart-soothing. That was Taraweeh. I found myself in an Arab country where the Imam, obviously, was so adept with the recitation of the Quran. I'm ensured that I would always be on time just to stand behind the Imam. Subhanallah. When the recitation was being made, oh gosh, it was so amazing that I could feel tranquility through my soul. And that's how it is. At times, it is better, although you may be good at reciting the Quran, it's best you listen from others. Imagine the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who had the Quran revealed through him, even had the Sahaba, that is the companions, read the Quran, so that it becomes a moment for self-reflection and reflecting upon the verses of the Quran. These were very beautiful experiences I can't deny I had at this Ramadan. So the third question is, what were the spiritual practices you found beneficially valuable? For me, I found everything valuable. Let's say the recitation of the Quran, the fasting, right? Taraweeh, standing behind the Imam and listening to the recitation of the Quran. In fact, I was so much fortunate, to have Umrah on the last day of Ramadan. That felt like being in Jannah. I won't lie to you. It was so much fulfilling for me this Ramadan. So you share with me, what were the most, valuable benefits you got in this Ramadan by sharing your thoughts and comments in the comment section. I'll be grateful for that too. So the last question is, what were the most challenging aspects to you and how could you overcome them? I wish I wouldn't talk about this, but however, yes, I have to share mine as you also share yours. Actually, I do believe in Ramadan is a time for community, right? Imagine Allah said, وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. Allah had sort of joined their hearts together, united their hearts. لَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. Were you to pay everything you have, the wealth you have for uniting the hearts of the believers, you couldn't have paid for that. So I believe community, or having a community, is very, very much important. Okay, I found myself in a Muslim country. Actually, the community I would usually get back home, that is in my country, Ghana, I didn't actually have that community, right? Obviously, this community here, but it isn't as much involving as the one that I found myself back home in Ghana, right? So, why? Because during Ramadan, this is a time for communal labor where we involve ourselves in sharing iftar. We do certain services for the masjid, for people who come for i'tikaf. And I miss all that. I would lie to you, I miss the sessions for tafsir, that is interpretation of the Quran. All these, I missed it here. You could imagine that. And also, i'tikaf is something I also missed. I also miss having to fast with my family, lead them in Taraweeh. And because of that, I've not done much recitation, revising and memorization of the Quran just to, lead the prayer. Because I didn't get the opportunity to do that. So I wasn't pushed to do that, to memorize the Quran or to revise my memorizations to lead the prayers. So these were some of the challenges I actually faced. But, well, I overcame them by understanding that we have different communities, right? So, and I acknowledged the opportunities that I had there and the different opportunities here too. So all the same, it was cool. Alhamdulillah, I would say that Ramadan was really, really fulfilling. So share with me your thoughts in the comment section below. And you can also share this video if you like it and give a thumbs up so that in our subsequent video will continue with what will be our objectives for the coming month after Ramadan. So that's it with my experience in Ramadan. And if you also want the journal, I will share the link in the description section so that you can access it from the Amazon store. If you get one, you're hopefully supporting the cause so that I get to bring you more on this channel and share my experiences with you as we go along our spiritual journey. Set out.